Meanwhile, also over the weekend, President Trump and Chief Justice John Roberts were locked in a war of words over the U.S. judicial system. The spat started after President Trump complained of bias by a, quote, Obama judge who blocked the president's migrant asylum policy. Making a rare statement to the Associated Press just before Thanksgiving, Justice Roberts decided to openly rebuke President Trump's comments. Chief Justice Roberts said, "We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them." The president then tripled down on his assessment on presidentially appointed judges, both on Twitter and after his Thanksgiving call to U.S. troops stationed overseas.
We don't have the right laws, and we have people interpreting the laws, and they always give us a bad interpretation. So hopefully we've shown some light on the Ninth Circuit. I know that Chief Justice Roberts, John Roberts, has been speaking a little bit about it, and I think and I have a lot of respect for him. I like him and I respect him, but I think we have to use some common sense.
So, Michael Steele, you have Donald Trump in a debate over judicial independence with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and John Roberts. Right. Pretty astounding to hear the Chief Justice speak out so publicly like that.
Well, it is. And if you know anything about Justice Roberts coming into and establishing the Roberts courts, the one thing that he wanted to make sure was that under his leadership, the court does not get sucked into this political vortex, which certainly he saw firsthand during the Obama years on issues like health care and other issues like that. So he's been very, very clear publicly and privately about, just how far he sees this relationship between the press and, the political world and the judicial world merging together. Of course, the president loves the fight. And the president, of course, wants to make the case against the Ninth Circuit. But the problem is the president doesn't know the Ninth Circuit from a circuit breaker, so it doesn't really matter. But it's how he's pushing up against the system. Again, one more institution that is in keeping with this idea of deconstructing the administrative state. The next wave of this is the court system, and we've seen that over and over again now.
Mike, extraordinary, though, that you would have the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court believe a comment from the president rises to the level of his speaking out, not necessarily in a political way, but in having to defend the judicial system in total.
Yeah, well, there's so many extraordinary things that happen multiple times each day that we're going to have to come up with a new word other than extraordinary. On Thanksgiving Day, when he is going back and forth with the Chief Justice of the United States, let's not forget, he also in his Thanksgiving message to the troops pointed out that he was thankful for all the great things that he had done for this country. The level of megalomania here is just so over the top, it's incredible. And yet at the end of the day, we come back to the fact that he is President of the United States and he can involve us, this country, in all of these absurdities. And the Chief Justice speaking out raises, I think, an obvious question. If the Chief Justice of the United States can speak out in defense of the judiciary, where are the Republican members of the United States Senate or the Republican members of the House of Representatives? Where are their voices in terms of speaking out for their independence against this onslaught of ridiculous assertions by the president that the United States Army can shoot civilians at the border, that the Ninth Circuit, and Michael's exactly right, he doesn't know the difference between the Ninth Circuit and the Ninth Circuit and the circuit breaker. Where are these voices of the Republicans?
Here's the answer, and I think you're going to start to see him. I don't know if you guys feel a shift, particularly since the election. When he used to get out there and say, we're going to shoot people at the border, or, the judicial system should report to me, whatever, you sense fear and anger. Now there's almost a pathetic chuckle that happens when he speaks. He really seems to me, at least just viscerally, to have been defanged. Whereas, I know me just as a human, I would listen to him and I would start to shake and want to scream at the TV. Now there's, as I said, there's a clown aspect to it without the danger. It's just, and I'm going to
start. He's still president.
He's still president, but I'm going to start to see, and you started to see a little bit with the Saudi Arabia thing, with Lindsey Graham. They're starting to peek out a little bit and speak up. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. I don't think the big bad wolf seems as bad anymore.
Well, the political calculus for the Republicans in the Senate is that a lot of those Senate races that were run by Republicans because they align themselves with the president. So you see Lindsey Graham, who at one point was a voice for, pretty reasoned foreign policy and actually was fairly critical of the president early on, now has completely doubled down on his support for virtually everything and anything the president says. And I think that's the polarization that happened in the midterms, which is that, yes, the Democrats won, huge majority in the House, but the Senate Republicans who won, they won largely on the support of the president. So their calculus changes. It gives them even less incentive to fight him. And a number of the senators who've been willing to be independent on this are now leaving the Senate.
I don't really think anything's changed so far, and I appreciate, Donnie's, your visceral sense of things. The reality is that the Republican Party in the House is now more conservative than it was before because the moderate members have all been defeated. The new Republican. So whatever you called moderate Republicans are no longer there in the House, and the Senate has a bunch of new members who rode in on Trump's coattails. I put quotes around that, but they tied themselves to Trump. People like Josh Hawley in Missouri, for example, those people are very dedicated to Trump. And you have people like Lindsey Graham and like Mitch McConnell who are afraid of getting primaried by pro-Trump Republicans 2 years from now. So the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, McConnell, that's his greatest fear. He's up for re-election in 2020, and the only way he's going to lose in Kentucky is if someone takes him on from the Trump right. So there may come a day where this all kicks in, where the losses that they suffered, what it means for them legislatively, when the subpoenas start to fly, if the president's approval rating actually starts to not just go down a little bit, but we start to see it get down in the low 30s, you might see Republicans then start to change their calculations. But on the basis of what we're seeing right now in this moment, apart from the occasional lone Republican voice who speaks out, we've heard those people for 2 years. They speak out for 10 seconds, they don't do anything. Nothing has dramatically changed. It may, but not so far.
And in one case, anyway, Senator Chuck Grassley actually came out and questioned John Roberts.
Yes.
He said, well, why didn't you come out against Obama when he criticized Alito during the State of the Union? Still ahead on Morning Joe.
But he was wrong on that. It was Alito who raised the issue.
Who rebuked Obama, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But
that was a sign of senility as much as anything.
That's the answer to the question of how they're
reassuring.
responding.
No, in this case, there was someone more senile than you, Mike.
All right. Still ahead on Morning Joe. Much more on the confrontations at the border and whether the president got ahead of himself when he tweeted that migrants seeking asylum must remain in Mexico while their claims are being processed. We'll have the latest on that. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
What are you most thankful for having a great family and for having made a tremendous difference in this country. I've made a tremendous difference in the country.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.